How you doing, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, in this video we're going to be going through a reaction video to some of the normal NRL content, a lot of what's happening in the game on a week-to-week basis, and this one going through NRL 360's show on Monday night there, August 8th. So we're going to start off with the Jaeman Salmon situation and the comments made by Ricky Stuart. So just going to show this little clip. Firstly, if you're unsure of the situation or you didn't see much of it, then we'll pop it up here first and then react to it.
Salmon kicked Tommy, he ain't on. And I've had history with that kid. I know that kid very well. He was a weak-gutted dog as a kid, and he hasn't changed now. He's a weak-gutted dog person now.
Ricky referred to Jaeman as a weak-gutted dog. How do you respond to those comments?
I don't think I need to respond to those comments. I know what Jaeman's like, and you know what, he's valuable in our club and we love him, so.
What I've dealt with, clearly I haven't. 450 games Ricky's been a head coach. Fantastic game of football for the people supported their son. Now we
nerve with Ricky. Now you're good mates with Sticky and you know him well, and it obviously didn't align. The comments after the game, the way in which he retaliated to that incident, it seemed to be something quite deep and quite serious. Can you give us some context as to why he was so angry after the game?
I can take you through most of it, Braith. I spoke to Ricky this morning. I know what happened all those years back. And I said to Ricky, if you come out and talk about this...
So basically, general gist here, probably a good idea to go back and actually watch this one, but he just speaks about, there was a few things that happened. It sounds like it's a bit more family, a bit more personal reasons as to why he ended up reacting that harshly to what happened on the weekend. So some things happened back then when he was 11 or 12, and something to do with his family, and maybe Jaeman was saying a few things, not exactly sure, but Kenty doesn't go into detail. He just said that Ricky would probably be better off if he came out and spoke about it, just it would give a bit more context, because at the moment he's copping all the flack and Salmon isn't. Obviously the kick out, you do see this fairly regularly, to be honest. Like, they'll kick out and I'll get hit in the face. There was one the other night, I think Brandon Smith was in a bit of a tackle, and whoever was down there was kicking out and he got kicked in the face, and he was like walking back, just holding his face there. So it does happen regularly enough. A lot of the time, majority of the time, there's no harm in it in terms of they're not trying to do it. But this one is obviously he kicked him in the balls and then in the face as well. To go along with the comments, it just obviously showed there was a little bit more, it put it a little bit more under the spotlight. So that's the general chat around the Salmon one. What do you guys think of the incident? Ricky ends up getting he's going to get a $20,000 fine and a 1-game suspension of coaching. Do you think that is fair? Just let me know in the comments what you guys think of that one. But we will move on to the next situation, which we're going to be talking about the wrestling. So there's obviously been a bunch of these hip drop tackles of recent time, and Greg Alexander comes out and speaks about the Storm. He comes out, who he actually used to captain the Storm at one point a long time ago, comes out and says that the Storm were to blame for all of the hip drop tackles. So Smithy reacts to that one, which will be interesting.
Sparking a furious defence from the former Storm skipper.
remember when this tackle first came in, and I thought this is a disgrace. Like players dropping their weight on the back of players' legs. A disgrace. And it was a Melbourne Storm tackle. Shock, horror.
Jesse Bromwich was the first one.
Yeah, I remember the charge, and I remember it just creeping into the game. I remember going, wow, what are these blokes doing? And another Melbourne Storm tackle.
But I just don't know how you can come up with that comment. Just say.
Tell you what, that second last one looked pretty bad. And that's the thing, like, these are the ones you can avoid majority. When they're really standing still like that, and the third man comes in around the hips and then just drops under, that one needs to be avoided. There was one the other day where it was they were running sideways, and I think it was the Brandon Smith one, and he just ended up swinging, and because they were running sideways, he was trying to tackle him, and it just worked out that way. But that one where they're standing still, that needs to go. And if you do that tackle, I think you should be gone for a long time. Just sets a bit of a precedence to kind of stop it happening, which we'll speak about a little bit later. But yeah, we'll go with Cammy Smith's thoughts on what Greg said now.
That single out one club to say they introduced that tackle into our sport. That's a little bit over the top. Yeah. Because off the top of my head, I can't ever recall seeing Brandy at one of our training sessions. I can't. To single out the Melbourne Storm, that's really unfair.
I didn't think it was any type of revelation when I made those comments about the hip drop emanating out of the Melbourne Storm, the grapple, the chicken wing, the rolling pins, the crusher, the hip drop. I think they all emanated out of...
Okay, I guess you can understand a lot of the wrestling's come from that, but actually they went back and looked at some stats, and Broncos were the first to get a wrestling coach, and yes, they weren't introducing a few of these types of tackles or these situations were coming up, but the whole goal of that and why the Storm and Broncos did so well back in that day was that they're slowing down the play the ball. The goal was to get them on their back, so they can't get that quick play the ball. You see what guys like Adokar and Cam Murray and these guys that always get to their front. Like it's removing that quick play the ball, which we know, especially in the 6 again era, that if you're getting that quick play the ball, you're often and pretty much scoring in that set or the next one there. So yeah, very interesting. Actually come out a little bit later and showed that there was, I think, in the last 4 years, for example, there's 42 charges that have been laid for a hip drop, and 8 of them came from the Broncos and 4 from the Storm. So yes, may have been introduced by that, but it's more about like if it's legal or not. Like the hip drop that we're seeing now that we're actually getting 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks for is illegal and shouldn't be in the game. So it doesn't matter who brought it in. I don't know why he needs to come out and say that. From what they say in the next bit, it's like that there's some kind of vendetta against him, given he's been talking about poorly about the Storm in some different ways for a long time. So yeah, very interesting. I just want to go through to a little comment here from Mr. Buzz. He's a funny man sometimes.
4 years since 2018, and they have had 4 hip drop tackles, players found guilty. The Brisbane Broncos have had 8.
That
doesn't mean they didn't start it.
That doesn't, yeah, exactly.
No, well, just let me finish, Mick.
Well, you got the floor buzz. Take it away.
No, well, what I'm saying, they gave it to me in date order, and it...
Well, that was funny. Absolutely, he pumps him a few times. I don't know why. He seems to be real abrasive, real aggressive, old Mick, and just says a bunch of things real quick. It's like, all right, let me speak, and then you can have your turn. I don't know. That's all I've really noticed from the few videos that I've watched so far. Is that all right? We're going to move on to just a quick. Just going to pop up on the screen the statement made by the board of the Storm. There, he's got on there. It's borderline defamatory. To abuse his position as a journalist as well as being deputy chair of a football club in our game is beyond acceptable. I can't believe this continued witch hunt for us for over 20 years still goes on to this. So, wow, if there's actually thinking and feeling like it's gone on for that long, then there's got to be something there, right? If it's like over 20 years is a long time, and why does this come up now? Like the hip drop the other day was the Carrigan one, so why is it coming into the Storm is the one that's doing it all the time? Is there anyone that's been charged this year, once or twice, but it's not, it just feels a little bit out of line and out of order on that one. But move on, and we're going to talk about the Tariq Sims situation now. It's a very interesting one this week, and we'll go through a little bit of that now.
On the sidelines for a high shot in Cronulla's Connor Tracy. Today, the NRL admitted Sims should have been sent off for the ugly tackle.
My personal view is it should have been a send-off. I've spoken on many occasions.
So there you go. Another one come out honestly and said that the refs have got it wrong, and the clearest thing with this was that he wasn't slipping. It was just straight up and down, a normal run. Like he was impacted by the other defender slightly first, but he didn't drop. Nothing changed with his headline, and there was no wrapping action of the arm, and that's what they've been trying to remove. And for him to cop that bad of an injury, and even just seeing what Tariq was like straight after the incident, he knew, like, he was obviously showing some concern for Tracy, but also he really had resigned to the fact that he was going to be sent off, and he still wasn't. But the biggest thing out of all this is then, not long after, 5-10 minutes later, Blake Brayley gets sin binned for, obviously a few infringements there from the team, and they end up getting the same punishment for, you're obviously losing a guy where it's just, and it should be completely stamped out. So that's why they come out and said they got it wrong. But for them to have that many looks at it, there was obviously a lot of time with Tracy on the ground, not obviously moving. So they had time to look at this properly and get it right, and they still didn't. So, I think Buzz was saying he was there that night and he was 60 metres away, he said, and he could see that it was a clear send-off straight away. So if he could see it, then we're doing all right. But just a very strange situation, and it looks like he's played his last game for the Dragons, and I think he knew that was going to be the case. So thankfully for the Sharks, it didn't really ruin their game. They still got the 2 points, but yeah, it was definitely a strange one. It's really annoying that they keep coming out and saying that they got something wrong. So not happy with that one there. And just quickly going to go forward as to what Kenty was saying here.
Did he get the right decision?
Oh, look, I'm of the opinion that if you start sending these guys off for these sorts of tackles, you will start to eliminate them. And with the games, with concussion so critical in the game now, and
simple, right? If you're sending blokes off, if you're giving them long suspensions for these types of things, it will eradicate out of the game. It has to. It's like anything. If you go down harshly on it, then people are going to go into tackles thinking of it and avoid doing it. If you just go, if I accidentally do this, I'm out for a few weeks, or I get sin binned, and we might be up by 20, so sin bin's not going to kill us. There's a bunch of things there. If you want to eradicate them and you want to look after the heads a bit more, look after these long-term injuries with the hip drops and stuff. If you go, if you do a bad hip drop, or those ones where they're staying still, like the carrying one, for example, and you drop straight under and they're out for an extended period of time, then you should get a big sentence, whether it's half a season, something like that. That's going to stop people from doing it. It's like, wow, I'm not going to have a brain snap of a stupid decision and make that choice to make that tackle. Like even Cleary's one, he got 5 weeks. If you made that one 7, 8, 9, 10, for example, then it just puts it in their mind so that they don't have that brain snap when they're in that moment. They're like, I've really got to think about it before each tackle, that I'm tackling with arms out wide and wrapping around, rather than using the shoulder like Sims did to go into that one, whether I'm picking up or whether I'm in the hip drop tackle there. They have time to go into that. There's 2 blokes holding him. Okay, I'm just going to wrap around the hips and hit hard there and try to, obviously bring them to their back, but not sliding underneath like so. So I think if you do that, that's the best way to do it. So I actually agree with Kenty on that one. And just lastly for this video, guys, we're going to drop in and talk about the Broncos, who are sliding a little bit down to 7th, which is crazy. They were clearly in that top 4, no matter than 3 to 4 weeks ago, and have dropped away since, which is very interesting because with Reynolds missing a few weeks there, they were still dominating, and they've dropped off a little bit the last few weeks especially. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
Esco's been the rock. He's absolutely flying now. And I think the other crucial piece is the Manu thing. How does Manu go from being right centre where he touches the ball 8, 9 times to being freewheeling and taking the game on to touch the ball 15, 16 and creating some opportunities? So I think all those issues or question marks some people had over the Roosters at different stages, they're starting to iron that out and finding a good balance between all of it.
Roosters on the way up. The team they play.
Yeah, just a quick one on the Roosters while we're there. With that Manu situation is an interesting one. They still have 4 weeks to figure that out properly as they're building up into the finals. I think they're building at the right time, very much the same as what the Rabbitohs are doing. Rabbitohs, I'd say, a little bit ahead of Roosters at the moment. They kind of, it seems like everyone's super happy. Like the Trolls brought, since coming back into the team, this real joy to the game, and they're putting on a lot of points now and really dominating. Led by him, Cam Murray, Cookie, and obviously Walker there as the mainstays. This is what we thought that they could do, and they're finally building into it at the right time of the season. Very much what they always done with Bennett. So it's kind of played out this way as well. And the Roosters the same thing. It's just making sure they can work out how they bring Manu into the game properly, as well as giving Walker his freedom to have his flair, for example, and then Kiri can run the show along with Teddy, for example. I think that's the best way to do it. But they do have, Verrills being there at 9 as well is an interesting one that a lot of people aren't speaking about. Just having him there on a week-to-week basis is not something that he's done the last few years with just a majority of injuries. Bradley's been there for now at least a month straight, which is usually in for a couple of weeks, gets injured or gets suspended, and he's gone. So if they can keep that continuity there, they've obviously lost Tupanua, but Nat Butcher and Crichton as well on the edges. If they can keep everything sort of together now and reduce those injuries into the rest of the season, I think they're going to be an interesting team to come up against. If they're a 5th, 6th type of team, you're not going to want to come up against them or the Bunnies as well. But we'll see where that shakes out. And just quickly on the Broncos now, which they're going to speak about on the bit of a slide.
On the weekend, look to be on the way down. Yeah. Is that too harsh? How do you see the Broncos' performances of late, and are we about to witness a decline?
Give them a bit more time. I think they've done a tremendous job, the Broncos. They won a few before losing back-to-back Tigers and the Roosters. But the alarming thing is how many points they've let in, how many missed tackles. I think we were talking about
the
that.
Energy's gone out of the game.
The Melbourne Storm.
That's pretty fair. The energy side of it, I think, when you saw them, they were up in their face in defence and just showing that tremendous amount of energy, even when Reynolds was gone, as I was saying. But the amount of points they've let in the last few weeks, that's not something to be too alarmed about, because if it happened for 3, 4, 5 weeks, then yes, I would be alarmed. But just the 2 is something they can address and they have enough rounds to get it right, but you obviously don't want to be in 7th position. So you'd say this would be the last week that they have to kind of work it out, but they'd be liking 3 out of 4 wins in those 4 rounds. I would be thinking to build that momentum into the finals that they've done so well throughout the entire year. And very, very interesting part of it is the fact that they do have a bunch of young guys, and they speak about this in the next section, is that energy-wise, how long can you stay up for as a youngster? That's usually what the boys will say, is that lasting over a complete season with the niggles that you carry if you have an injury and try to come back from it, whether you're playing Origins. They've had a bunch of guys in Origin this year, and that's going to play a factor as well. You've got Carrigan, who's out now for a bit. So there's a few guys that have to step up and carry the squad. Payne Haas has had a few shoulder injuries. He had the little bit of a knee issue as well. So plenty happening across all the positions to go with those young guys. And Reynolds, I think, needs to step up. And this is why they paid him. It's why they got him there to lead and go, the guys, this is exactly what we need at the moment. And potentially training needs to change a little bit. Maybe it's training with a little bit more joy, whether it's a little bit less on the bodies, just to make sure that they're fresh enough to get through this section. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting what Walters comes up with and if they bounce back in the next few weeks. So definitely keep an eye out on the Broncos and be interesting to see if we actually tip them over the next few weeks and go from there. But that's generally all I want to say around the events of round 21. We look forward to round 22, guys. We've got 4 rounds to go before finals, so there's going to be plenty going on, and I can't wait to increase this amount of videos once fantasy's actually finished, so we can get through and really deep dive into each and every finals game. So thanks again for being here, for liking and subscribing. That would be delightful, and we'll catch you in the next bunch of fantasy videos. See you later, guys. Have a great day.